Hello and welcome to this webinar. My name is Stefan Lindblad. I'm an illustrator, graphic designer and artist, and I live and work in Stockholm, Sweden. This webinar is about how to create a side plan illustrations for landscape architecture. And if you're a landscape architect, you instantly know what I'm talking about. If you're not, you're going to learn something new, hopefully. And this being a side plan, it's being seen from above. So the white thing that you're seeing in front of you, and basically everything you see is seen from above. So you see the ceiling of the roof of the house here, for example. But what I want to show you before I talk more about this area, I want to show you a couple of brushes, trees that I've made, and I've also made them into symbols, and I want to show you how to work with symbols. But instead of showing you how I made all these brushes, I'm going to show you by making one tree and then how I add that to something called the symbol manager. And then I'm going to show you how we can use these in our design in a most wonderful way. If you know what symbols are and how they work, then you probably already know what I'm going to do and how it's going to be used. But if you're not, follow with me here. And now let's see here. I just made a what is called now is an ellipse. So what I do now is simply adding another curve, and I'm going to close this curve by letting this outline connect with the beginning of it. And this already made possibilities for how a tree could look like. And I'm going to repeat a little bit this one you already seen here and show how I did that. You can either just go freelancing, like not freelancing, but freestyling is the word, and don't care so much about a perfect eclipse here. But if you want to have that, a perfect eclipse, you just hold down the control key while you do it, and then you simply add outlines like this. As you can see, I've chosen quite a thick outline for this one here. That is easily fixed. I would probably you can do that by selecting all these and then go up here, and then you can change it that way. But what you also could do, of course, is simply to click the outline pen tool down here in the right corner and choose a point or pixel or whatever measurement you want to have value, and choose something that works for you. This one over here, for example, is made. I made that by using a 1 point. Also important, of course, is to see to that you select scale with object, and do that through all. I always do that, and I also ask you to do the same, because if you're going to go drag an illustration, vector illustration, up and down like this in a side plan, you might start working with a large object, and then when you're dragging it down to resize it to a smaller size, you need to have it scaled with object. Otherwise, it's going to just be a chunk of outlines and you won't see anything within it. It would look just like a blob, basically. But if I now want to change this example, for example, very quickly here now, I could go and do like that. I could do that actually with a whole object and change that to 1. And suddenly we have something resembling the tree here to the left. And that's one way of doing it. Another thing you can do is also very quickly to use this one here. With that one, I use something called the Polygon tool, and I really ask you to play around with that one. Here is, for example, a 3-side one polygon. That's usually the default. I changed that to 10. What that does, it gives you a wide variety of customizing or drawing a shape, any kind of shape actually, by just adding nodes to the shape it will do that equally on, as you can see, interactively. So for example, if I now would now let's see if we can grab that one here and make a curve to this one, it will add that as well. And if I then go inwards like this, suddenly I have a plant. And so there are numerous ways how you can work with the Polygon tool. This was basically one of the most basic things you can do with a Polygon. The Polygon tool is a fantastic, very cool object tool. So what I'm now going to do are some very quick steps here now, so we get up to speed a little bit. I'm just going to show you what happens now. I'm dragging this into it and making this into a symbol instantly. But let's say you want to change this and do some editing, because it's going to be a green tree. So I'm just going to right click and edit symbol, and here it is. And so what I now can do is to make any adjustments or changes that I want to this image. And I see that I didn't grab that one, so I'm just going to make that into green as well. I also see that this has to be a little bit darker green as well. So make all the adjustments needed, and when I've done that to this symbol, I'll simply click finish adding a symbol, and if we have it over here again, I'll click save. And now I saw here that this one here is not a closed curve, so I'm going to choose closed curve here up in the property bar. Click save again. Have that as a habit, and I'm going to repeat this situation here again, just so we see it, so you can see how I'm doing this, because I have to do this anyhow, so I can just simply show you how I do it, and then do like the same again, and then see if I could do anything more. Maybe have a little bit darker there, and then a lighter, and maybe I should just get rid of that one. So to remove that, make this a little bit more bright, or maybe it should just change that into another color. Let's say if we pick this one instead, and then keep the dark like that, and then again finish editing symbol. You have it over here, and now I'm going to take one of the symbols that actually are a little bit more complicated, so I'm going to combine these, and let's say you do the same procedure again. You drag it over here. I mean, you can color them already as an object, so you don't have to first draw them to the symbol manager and then edit them, not at all. But I just want to repeat doing this. You see how I do it, and also this symbol here actually give you a little bit of a problem if you don't know how to do it. So if I now would fill this, you see that the inner circle is not filled. So how do we do that? Well, the thing is that we have to, the simplest thing is to use the break part. That will make these filled again. And so this is a perfect way of seeing how I think that I might have done something quote quote wrong, and then I have to adjust it a little bit. And now I'm just gonna add some lines, and then maybe add a thick outline to this one, maybe, and see what happens, and then maybe add a green one over there. Okay, so we'll settle with that. We can actually add something here. Just draw something again. No, we just leave it as it is, and then simply click on the mouse again, finish editing symbol, and there we have it. Okay, so click save on this one, and I'm not going to do so much shading work on this one here, because we are going to go over to Corel Photo Paint in just a while. But I want to show you how we can add some shadows underneath the trees.
both in CorelDRAW and PhotoPaint, but especially in Corel PhotoPaint. So we're just going to see how this looks. So these are a couple of trees that we have there, and then we're going to, then we're going to add this one here, and place that one here, drag it into size a little bit over there, and then we drag one over here, make this one a little bit over here. Maybe it's a little bit too big, isn't it? Because they're way too big than the houses are. So we're just going to make it smaller, and same here with this little group here. Like that. And we drag a little bug over here again. Very quickly. I'm just going to pause in a while the recording, and when I get back to you in this recording, I'll be doing more of this work, just so we save a little bit of time, so you don't have to look at this procedure too much. And when I get back, I'm going to show you how we work a little bit with shading in CorelDRAW, but especially in PhotoPaint. So I see you.
Hello and welcome back. During the intermission, you can see that I've done quite a lot of work. So I'm just gonna select everything and click selected, so we can see the whole image more in center there. And I want to show you a couple of things before I move over to what I said was going to move over to Corel PhotoPaint and do the shading work and other effects to the image in PhotoPaint instead. Because of course we can do shading with vectors and so on in CorelDRAW, that's not a problem. But as I really want to show you how you can use PhotoPaint, that's what we're going to do. But before we move over to PhotoPaint, I just want to show you a couple of tools that I actually think that you will have a lot of use for. Of course, because CorelDRAW is a illustration program, but it's also a layout program. So that means that we have in CorelDRAW a fantastic set of features for text. And as you can see now, I'm drawing up a couple of text frames here. And because you probably need to add some explanatory text to your site plan illustration, it's very good to know that you can work with both artistic text and paragraph text. Now, if I would just take a sample text, and that's usually lorem ipsum, I just right-click and place it inside there. But I can always also just write Artist Studio here, red roof, and a terrace, sand color, something like that, and copy that text. And of course, artistic text, if I would take this, which now is a paragraph text, and make that into a simple artistic text, I just place myself outside the text frame and don't create a text frame. I simply write or paste the text that I just copied. So it's very easy to work with those two types of text. I'm going to remove most of these text frames here now and just keep one. And I want to show you a set of features that as I mentioned. I'm first going to show you something that's called the connector tool. The straight connector tool is kind of self-explanatory, because what you actually do is connecting two objects, in this case the paragraph text frame and the red house in the image. That's very good because these two are now connected, so as I move them they will follow where accordingly. But if you don't like to use the straight connector tools, and you have a few here to choose from, you can of course simply remove that and use a very simple thing as a 2-point line tool and put it like that. and it's of course very easy to just place that line wherever you like. And if you want to add a arrow for some reason, you can do that as well to the outline and so on. I don't think and it was never selected. There we have it. Sorry for the zoom in and out there hysterically. Of course, I'm gonna remove that for now. But anyway, another thing that we have is also the call-out shapes that I think is quite good for me sometimes for certain types of technical illustrations that I do. So I just drag a little frame there with the call-out shapes, and you can select from here and then choose the type of call-out shape for speech bubble kind of, and then just grab with the shape tool. You grab the little yellow dot there and drag it to the object which you want to connect, so to speak. And these are not like the connected tool. This is just a call-out shape. But you can change the frame the frame color, if you like, so you can have a softer feel to it. And you can also change the width of it if you like that too, for whatever reason. And this is up to, and you can have a none, but that sounds odd if you want to have a call-out shape. But this is if you like, if you think that a call-out shape would actually add value for the presentation of your site plan illustration, your design of your garden or neighborhood. And another thing is, and if you're working with text, you can be some tricky sometimes if you're not used to it, but you can actually add like a text frame to the call-out shape as well. And if we, for example, now let's see where I'm at. Yeah, another thing that I want to show you is the parallel dimensioning tool. By default, the dynamic dimensioning tool is always selected by default, as I said. But what that actually means is that for this image here, this illustration, which is not in a true full scale or anything like that, as you can see here, it's just 38.18 millimeters tall or long, or however you want to see that as. But let's say you're working with a client and you're not working in a full scale, so you want to change this to a value that how it will be in reality, but you're not working, as I said, in that scale for the moment, and because you want to say that this is not only going to be 38 millimeters, that's going to be like 3 meters or something like that. So how do you do that? Well, it's very easy. We simply remove this one here, and we select the parallel dimensioning tool or any of the other ones here that you want, and you go up here to, again, the property bar, and choose dynamic dimensioning. Deselect that one, and now when we do this again, let's see, probably going to have another measurement now because I didn't get the exact same place where I put the tool. So what now happens is that if we zoom in here a little bit now, I'm simply going to pick the text tool, and now I'm going to be able to change this to any measure I want. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say that it's 5, and I'm also going to say that it's 5 meters. I'm going to write meter because the particular client that I'm working with might like to see that it's actually meter, and they are not used to just seeing an M as a symbol for meter. So that's very easy. What's also good is that if you want to add some text afterwards, of course you can just do that from both ends. But you can also work with the prefix and the suffix, and that will add this, whatever you add in these fields will wind up here and here as well. Another thing that I want to show you when I'm already here, because I've already been talking about text, and the good thing with CorelDRAW and PhotoPaint for that matter as well, is that they have a full OpenType support. And if you're not familiar with OpenType, well, it is a when a designer make a design of a type font that we're using, and I'm using Arial for the moment, which is the default here. The designer and the foundry have added certain stylistic things to this particular font, so you can find more variations on the theme, so to speak. So if you like to have a change of the numerator or fraction, proportioning lining, stylistic small caps, denominator, and so forth. So depending on what type of font you're using, you can have these possibilities. If you would, for example, choose a true type, you would not have those possibilities with that font if a font doesn't have that extra feature which open font allow. So you can see already when you select the text if it actually has a open type, and it's actually very easy to do that by clicking, deselecting the true type. We can of course just click clear filter so we see as we want it again, and we have the Blanca here, for example. We can now see this is an open type. It doesn't have so many variations, but it's an open type still. So we take that Arial again, where the designer and the founder actually added more features to the type font. We can see how much they added. But also, if you want to look for a text, if you use the font list, you can actually see a lot of things going on in here. You just click this icon here, hide or hide the filter list. And if you would then just want to go for open type and then go for whatever font that has a certain style added to it, so you can actually filtering out those fonts, and it would be actually much easier for you to find that font. Now it's time to move over to PhotoPaint. So I'm just going to remove these text things here because I don't need them in PhotoPaint. What's important now is to remember I don't need all these curves and objects individually editable. But what I need is to have, for example, these trees with this color and the roof here into separate layers, so to speak. And if you will quickly look in the object manager now, we see that, for example, the tree object here, the tree layer, so to speak, with all these symbols are on one layer. All these will be, all these symbols, vectors in the tree layer will be combined into one little symbol or curve, that is. And the same will go for brushes. Instead of two different curves, they will be just one. That's how it works. But to be able to have at least all layers intact and see each layer with all their various curves and rectangles or what have you in each layer, to have them individually editable, I have to, when I move over to PhotoPaint, I have to go to Export. I'm going to change the name here to something else, the 8, and choose CPT, which is PhotoPaint's own file format, and click Export. Convert to bitmap. This vector image in CorelDRAW will now be converted to bitmap, so we can work with it in PhotoPaint. I'll see that the resolution is 300. I see that I have embed color profile, and especially important is the maintain layers. If this is not selected, you won't have all these layers individually as objects or layers in PhotoPaint. All these will be combined into one single. I don't want that. I want them editable. So that's why I check maintain layers. So click OK and let that process. And in 1 second from now, I'm going to... Hello and welcome to this section of the webinar about site plan illustration for landscape architecture. In CorelDRAW, you saw that I chose through File, Export, and in the dialog, I saw to that I have enabled Maintain Layers. And that is important, of course. So all the various objects and curves and everything that was inside each layer was combined, so it just became like one object for each layer. And that's normal, that's how it is. But because I chosen maintain layers, you can see these layers now intact, combined as they are. They are intact and individually editable here in Corel Photo Paint's Object Manager docker. And what is so good with this procedure is that, for example, if I would just choose an export and not choose maintain layers, all these layers would just be one. And that would mean that what I see many users do actually when they go from other kinds of programs like AutoCAD, or for that matter CorelDRAW, and they open it in a competing software, or in Corel Photo Paint as well. They sit and use the magic wand mask tool or some of the other freehand mask and so on, when they really don't have to for doing image editing or running whatever they want to do on the illustration in Photo Paint. So I'll stress the importance to use maintain layers. So for example, if we're just going to zoom out a little bit here now, just for example, if you feel now that you would like to do something about this tree here up in the corner, and you know that it's on one object here in Object Manager, well, that's actually not a problem. What is so good is that because as I deselect and select it again, you see that there's it's actually very easy to cut that out from the rest of the image. Now I'm doing this kind of brutal, so because there are things around this image, of course, but just to show you how easy it is. If you just use, for example, the freehand mask tool, you can go around a little bit more, because now, as we can see here, there are parts of this plant here and some parts of the stone here that might get cut out as well. But as I made the selection, see to that you're on the same object, Control X on the keyboard, and then cut out. And then paste it back again with Control V, and that would create a new object. So now we have this tree on a new separate object of its own. But I'm gonna Control Z because I don't need that, so I'll keep that on the same object here. But just so you know that it's actually very, very easy to do that. And now when we can see the whole image, I want to show you how we can add shadows, for example, here in Photo Paint. As I said, in CorelDRAW, it's actually very easy to make shadow work and so on in CorelDRAW. But for this webinar, we wanted to do this in Photo Paint, and I wanted to show you this because of course, it adds another dimension to the image as well. So what I'm actually going to start by doing is I'm going to make this tree into a group, because I'm going to add some shadows around here. So I'm going to make this into a group. And you now see that the tree object here is now a group. And I'm also going to, I'm just touched it a little bit, and then I'm going to see tree group. This, by adding tree and the word group, I instantly see that within this group I have the objects around for the trees. That's pretty obvious and self-explanatory, but just so you know if you're totally new user for this one. And then just add a new object. So these two objects are now inside the group. So if you look at the object menu like this, you just look for that little arrow expand it, and here you have this other object. You can now add that to the back of the original tree object, which actually makes it easier for us to paint underneath. There are various ways of painting behind something when you're using a program like PhotoPaint, but here's one way of doing it. And what I'm first going to do is to make a decision. I'm going to use black, and as I use black, I'm going to use the opacity slider and go down to around 11 or 10. Let's see what happens. I'm just going to show you what happens. By adding black and that high opacity or low opacity, I mean, so it's very transparent, it's very easy for me to paint in the shadow. And I've decided that the shadow would go from here and down into the image. Now that actually tells me that I actually made something wrong with the shadows. I'm actually going to go do that shadow again, because if the sun comes in here, I probably have just a little shadow here, maybe from the stone, but not that much actually. And then I can add more shadow here if I like. Another thing to do also, if you're having a day when you're shaking a little bit while you're painting and drawing, what you then could do is to use the flip horizontally and vertically and so on, and then go back and making it easier for you to paint. I'm going to show you that and how easy that is in PhotoPaint. The way to do that is to use a couple of customized commands. Actually, these up here I've added to the property bar through tools, customization, and command bars, and then go to image, and then I added these to the property bar. And because you can, of course, in other situations you can choose to just rotate or flip a single object, but what I'm now going to do is to flip and rotate the entire image. So it's important to know which one of these that you add to the property bar and which one of them you're going to use. So we added some shadows here, and sorry if I'm talking a little bit too fast. I think I'm actually doing that, but so anyway, I'm gonna click this one here, rotate 90 clockwise. So what that now does is it's making it easier for me to draw the brush pen downwards instead of horizontally, because when you do it horizontally, sometimes if you're tired or if you're not so secure on your hand, you might shake a little bit. So it's actually a good practice to do this. And of course, if you're used to draw, you've probably already done this a few times if you're having a pen and paper or your sketchbook at home or at your office. You just turn around your sketch pad or paper, and then you just draw the lines, and it's easier for you. So I'm just going to add this shadow here, and when I think that I'm quite I feel quite good about the shadow work, I'm just going to rotate it back, so to speak. And I see that I actually want to add some more shadows. I'm actually going to work with another object and put that into an 11 and see if I could get that effect of, yes, by having the same value of the opacity slider on this new object and the old one, which is actually 10, but if I would change this to 10, you'll see that I still get a little bit darker each time I'm adding to the previous shadow that I worked. And this could actually be quite good, because what this happens is that if I now, for example, would remove the extra shadow that I put here on the terrace, which seems almost obvious that I should, because the elevation here is different. So there will always be some light, the sun, that reflects on the terrace, although it's from behind this wall here. But the one on the ground is probably a little bit darker because it's more difficult for the sun to reflect down here. So that could be one way of doing it. So we can actually just intensify that a little bit to make it more obvious. So you can always play around with that one. But that's anyway how it works with light. So that is one way of doing it. I'm also going to click Control S and save it. And now let's see if I want to add some shadows at the other places here as well. So I'm actually going to put some shadow there. And why am I using a black color when I'm shading? Well, another way of doing shadow work would actually, of course, be to pick a color here, the green, and then choose a darker green, or use the same technique here in the object docker, but still using the same green and so on. And that would actually be quite good, and maybe that's what I'm going to do at the end. But by using the same black color here now, I actually make it very easy for me if I'm going to make a quick adjustment and enhance the image by using the same type of shadow. I could agree, if I would sit here in a discussion with someone, to say that the black paint works much better for shadow work on this sand instead for the green. But sometimes it actually looks very good to use the black. It gives another feel to the whole thing. Let's go Control C. I think I'm just going to add, before I move on, I'm going to add some shadow here as well. So very quickly anyway, we've added some shadow to parts of this image, and let's move on to the next part. But before we do that, I want to show you how easy it is to rotate the image back to the original, and that's just clicking this little button here, and we're back, and then click Save to be safe, so to speak. As another thing also, I'm going to continue working with the shadow work here, because when I click this icon here, I see that the plants, unfortunately, I was a little bit too fast in CorelDRAW. I would have loved to have the plants on its own separate layer, or I could just cut it out now with the mask tool. But the whole idea that I want to show you is that because I have it on these maintain layers from CorelDRAW, it's very easy for me to just click Control on the keyboard and M for the mask. So if I now would like to add some shadow work on top of this one here, it's actually very easy for me not to spill over to the rest of the image. So I'm now just going to click this green here, and in this situation I'm actually going to use multiply, and that is merge mode. So this is, now I'm using another technique. Instead of just using the black and then the opacity, I'm now adding multiply to the same color as the tree itself. And what happens now is that when I'm multiplying the original color, so every time it winds up on the tree with the same color, it multiplies and gets darker. And then of course I can still use the opacity slider and see if that works for me. But as you also see that depending on what kind of color values you have, it will react a little bit different. Sometimes I don't know if I actually like this green that suddenly came up here, so I might go with black again, but as it at least show you how it could look like. Another way then, of course, is that, let's say multiply works like this. We could always go see if some of the other merge modes here would suit the project a little bit better. So we just use the down arrow here and slowly click, and then suddenly we're gonna see what happens. No, that's too hard. And let's see if any of these work actually. And all these that I choose, I can always use in combination with the opacity slider, of course. So we'll just go through these and see what happens. Now, so let's do it like this. I'll keep that, add some opacity slider, and it might work. You never know. I'm gonna leave it as it is, so not rush too fast. And then I'm actually gonna pick another color for the other tree here and see how that works for me. So I must need some multiply for this one, and also here it gets a little kind of an intense, almost bright. It's not bright, but you know what I mean. So this is an easy way of putting a shadow to the whole thing, of course. So, and then we'll see how that works with some opacity. Okay, so we keep that, and now I want to show you another technique as well. The other technique of adding shadows to something here is, let's see if we can, which one was the one that I chose for the shadow work here. So let's see if I'm going to work on these trees here. So I deselect that for a moment. What I'm now going to do is to first duplicate this object, and then I go to Effect Tools, and in Effect Tools I'm going to choose Custom Dodge and Burn. Now, as you can see, it says Dodge or Burn. In this case, I'm going to use the Burn Shadows. So I'm just going to go with that one, and I really need to duplicate this, because I recommend that, because I don't have to duplicate to make an effect to this tree, but I don't want this object here to be destroyed if I, for example, don't like what I'm now going to do. I can always just ditch the new duplicated object. So it's much easier for me to make changes and keep one object here intact, so to speak, if you get what I mean. So what I'm now using is with Dodge and Burn, I'm actually, by holding one stroke, I get an even thin shadow here. So it just kind of, but if I would now, which is also very important, I release the brush now from the Wacom pen, and then I add once again. And if I do that again, release my pen from the pen tablet or the mouse, and then add again, I actually add more shadows. And if you're used to traditional media like gouache paint, for example, you would probably understand or see the similarities with a gouache paint. For example, an oil or acrylic wouldn't work similar to this, but the gouache actually does that. So every time you add the same color, it always adds darkness to the one lying on top. And if you learn how to use this with Dodge or Burn, you can get quite wonderful results. So you can sit and touch back and forth and and make these shadows more individually for each tree here. So I'll just do that with this tree as well, and in just touch, release, or press and release, press and release, and let's see what happens. So I'm just going to do these trees with Dodge and Burn tool, and in this case it's the Dodge, or the Burn I mean. And if I now release the mask, I'd like to do some work on the background here. If I'm gonna use the dodge again, I already added some shadows, but if I want to do that, I'm gonna duplicate that one as well. I'm actually I can't look at this one and not see that I have to do something about that. So I'm actually going to use the dodge and burn effect and just show you. Actually, I have to duplicate this part actually. Or I could just do like this. I'll use the ellipse tool and simply cut out and then paste in. That wasn't good, was it? Can't cut out. What I do is, because it added actually an outline there, which I didn't like, so I just use Control C, which is copy, and then paste, Control V, and then drag it down here to the sand. And what that now means that only the one that I copy and saved will be affected. So I don't have to copy the entire part of the underlying object. So now I'm going to use the dodge and burn again and try to see how this works. And so I'm just going to touch up and down a little bit here now, because so it give a little bit of a more real feel, so to speak. But this touch and press effect, depending on what type of brush nib you use, the more different it will look. For example, don't be afraid of changing that from this one that I'm currently using, and instead, for example, taking this nib instead. So it's the same dodge and burn effect tool, I just changed the nib. And that's so good with Corel Photo Paint, because you choose a brush and then you can customize that brush. You can actually make it into a new brush if you like. But let's remove this a little bit, what I've already done, and add some touch with the work with the dodge and burn tool again with another nib. So now let's see how the result will look with this instead. And as you can see, well, it's difficult for you to see in the beginning because it makes such a soft initial result. So you have to work a little bit more. Actually, this one is very, very good when you're working with an illustration for a portrait of a human being, or making skin or something like that, or you want to go in and make very, very, very fine detail work. As you can see, it doesn't affect this part because I'm not doing anything to that part. I'm just doing it for where the stones and the sand are, so to speak. So there are quite a few ways of adding shadows. What that also show you here now is that this actually make it possible to give a certain texture to the image. So with this, you've now seen that how easy it is to make these shadows, work with different tools, and get a result that might enhance your image. And this is just to show you not the end result with this image, but showing you a few of these techniques. Another technique on how to work with shadows, with light coming in here, and also at the same time adding texture to the drive in here, the sand, is actually to go to this object here and duplicate it, add some multiply. You can add however much you like. Now you can see that this little area here is actually the one that I copy and save to just show you the effect on that one. We can actually see if that's the one. Yep. We can actually first by actually reducing a little bit on that. And now I'm using the eraser tool, as you might have quickly noticed there. I'm gonna reduce the size of this. What I'm now going to show is actually a very nice way of getting an interesting effect. So I've duplicated this one here, I've added multiply, and now I have the brush tool. And I would recommend using a rather large soft nib, and then just erase from the new duplicated object. And this now is only up to you and how you think this works, how you like this to look like, of course. Just sit and do some tapping technique on tap the pen onto the Wacom pen tablet, and by tapping it's easier for you to see the result and not go too many steps ahead, so you can control it a little bit, and then simply look at it and see if this actually works for you. As you can see that I've tapped a little bit softer behind here, and that gave an impression of another impression, I mean. So, and then we can just do it like this, and then maybe there's some light splashing into this area here as well. Not so much here with it. And suddenly, I'm just going to click and save this, and suddenly we have more of a feeling of sand and texture on the ground. I'm now going to use the same technique and showing you some other steps you can use at the same time. So I'm just going to duplicate the grass lawn down here, and I'm going to use a multiply. And before I'm tapping along here now, I just want to show you, by using the merge mode, you're actually using having an arsenal of effects that you can use to enhance your image. And this one, for example, by just clicking texture, we get it suddenly a very dark effect to the image, and invert made it purple, and so on. So these actually give you many possibilities in your work also. But I'm going to go with multiply, and then just show this technique once again to show a little bit by using the big brush, a little bit tougher here above here, and tapping along and being a little softer with the brush here in my tapping technique, and keep a little bit. I actually removed quite a lot, as you can see, and that's perfectly okay. I really give that definition that I want to the image, enough to give the impression that I'm after. And then save that, Control S. I'm actually gonna remove a little bit over here because it affected this one as well, and so I still have some shadow there. I also want to show you how we can affect this. Let's keep showing the changes we can do to this object here by simply using something called lens objects. And the lens objects are adjustment lens objects. So many of these adjustment effects that we have here in the menu, we also have here available, if not everyone, but almost. So we have them available here as a new lens. And the difference with using this dialog here from the Object Manager Docker is that by using this technique here, they are non-destructive, so it doesn't destroy permanently anything to the image, in contrast to if you would do it from the adjustment menu, for example. There are different ways to bypass that as well, of course, by simply duplicating an object and so forth. But these are very, very good. So, for example, if I'm now going to choose a saturation, I'm actually going to show you first by clicking on top in the hierarchy and show you how this now affects the entire image. So if I'm going to work with saturation here, so we can see it in the entire image, and drag saturation to this left, then you see how it totally changed the entire image. But if we quickly cancel that one and simply go, for whatever reason, to the grass lawn here, and choose the lens object again and the same hue saturation, and drag to more or less the same area to the left, you see that it only affects the object underneath. So it affects the sand and the grass lawn. So the way to not affect the underlying sand is by cancel this one and then use Control M on the keyboard, which selects the grass lawn, and make a selection of that one. Pick the same lens, open that, drag it to the left, and suddenly you see that this only changes the grass lawn. So suddenly we have quite nice effect to this area of the image. And I think I'm actually going to keep that a little bit. So you see how easy it is to make these sort of adjustments to your site plan illustration just before you send it to your client. I also want to show you how you can use texture effects. You can always use any type of photograph effect and bring that into the image. Sometimes for texture effects, but sometimes we don't have to go to the internet or go to the Corel Connect program and download, for example, a set of images that you can download from the Content Exchange, for example. We simply just have a couple of effects already in PhotoPaint. So, for example, I'm just going to quickly show you. I'm going to use canvas effect, for example. But before I start using that effect, I'm going to just decide that I'm going to do something here to the main house. And this, of course, is a solid object like this one. So there are various ways on how to select. So just choose any of these mask tools that you like, and then simply drag up, and then if I use the Control Shift key here now, I should be able to keep the mask that I already took up, and suddenly I have selected the whole area. And then I saw that I missed a little bit over here, and by holding down the Control key I won't lose the area, so to speak, that I already masked before, because that can happen if you work with another mask tool, that you mask an area and then you want to mask another area and combine those, but then you lost the one that you already masked, so to speak. But this technique, just hold down the Shift key and you're fine. And I also just want to copy this terrace and make that into a new object. So I'm going to drag that down around to the main house again. I can make this into a group just for the sake of it. So I have those easily at hand, and then drag that on top, and then go over here to Effects and choosing Canvas. And now you'll see, if I go to Reset here now, you'll see that it's kind of bright here for this canvas. You have a selection of already pre-installed effects, and many times these are perfectly okay for many effects, and they've been around for a while, but you can always use some of your own images that you want to add through this dialog, or doing it differently. But this way it's very easy to just change, in this case, just the emboss a little bit. As I change the emboss, you see how it affects the texture here. So less emboss, and it softened the feel. And then click OK, and then deselect the selection. So suddenly I have a nice texture to the terrace. Now I'm going to fill this little area. I'm going to use a totally different technique for this one. I'm going to create a new object to begin with. So it wind up here. And now we're going to use the new edit fill dialog. And with X6 and X7, Corel gave us a totally new fill engine to work with, and it's absolutely beautiful. You see this pattern here. I'm going to use that again, and I'm going to show you how I got this image into my computer. Because this one is actually this little thing here. See if I can get and hover over that. Yeah, this one I downloaded from the Content Exchange, Corel's own server. So if you have Corel Connect, just open Corel Connect directly through the property bar in PhotoPaint or CorelDRAW, or just open the standalone program. And then click Open, in this case, in PhotoPaint. It's a little bit out of screen. I just want to show you that these are the ones that instantly open. But if you click this little bugger here, it says More from Selected Folder. What that actually will do is to open even more images down here. And I think it seems that it's often overlooked that it's such a little text there, so we just miss it. So anyway, now I have that image downloaded into PhotoPaint to begin with. And what I now do, of course, is to simply save that and click on this one that I've already saved, but I'm just going to show you how I do it again. And I save it into a folder that I created for this project, this webinar. So I'm just going to click Save, and it's going to ask, do you want to replace? Yes. Override. I click Save. Yes, and then I can just simply remove this one here. So now I have that image to my computer locally. What I now want to do is see to that I have selected this object here, number 26, and then take the rectangle, place myself somewhere here, so it's just slightly under the stones. It will wind up under these stones here because these stones are on another object on top of these ones here. So with that done, I'm just going to go to the Fill tool. I'm going to double click, and what's important now is you can of course find a lot of fill images for various users by clicking the big one here, but what I want to mention is when you just downloaded an image locally to your computer, you have to go to this little New Source from File. So you simply click that one, select the one you just saved to your computer from Corel Connect, click Import. If you need to do any more additional adjustments to this fill, this is the place to do that. You can do tons of things here, actually, much more than you at first think you can do. So you can pause for a little minute and look at it, but I'm just going to click OK because I'm fine with it as it is. And then I'm just going to fill this selection with this fill. So now we have this one over here. But before we do anything more, or I mean just settle for this one here, I want to show you something also that's wonderful. You have it in both CorelDRAW and PhotoPaint. So you go to Fill tool again and then to Interactive Fill. So Interactive Fill is one of your best friends. So and then when I'm going to add this fill, you can see that the diagonal is going in this direction, and another direction vertical going with the garage like this, and then we have it totally vertical here. So I'm going to keep this as it is basically. But if I now want to change anything with this patio that I'm creating, by using the interactive fill tool, I can increase the size, rotation, and everything with this fill tool, and it's extremely versatile. So, but to make it looking a little bit more real, I'm just gonna keep it at like that, and from there I'm just gonna click the remove mask, and suddenly I filled this patio with an excellent fill, and just gonna click to fit so you can see the whole image. So as this is actually wrapping up this webinar, I hope you got quite a few ideas on how you can work with PhotoPaint, and there are tons of more ways. Time is just limited, so this webinar doesn't go too much over time. But as you can see, there's the new way of working with the fill tool, which I love, and it's the traditional way as well, which works perfectly okay as well. But the new way actually adds more possibilities, so do take a look at that. And simply have as fun as possible. Thank you.